Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in China for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. The SCO is part of the multinational platforms where India shares the stage with regional and global powers. Both leaders shook hands right before the bilateral meeting, which lasted an hour. Now, this was only the second bilateral meet between the two leaders since last year's Kazan BRICS summit. Prime Minister Modi said that an agreement was reached between the two countries to continue the Kailash Mansarovar pilgrimage, and the direct flights were also going to be resumed. He also thanked President Xi for successfully hosting the SCO summit in Tianjin.
सीमा पर डिसएग्रीमेंट के बाद शांति और स्थिरता का माहौल बना हुआ है। हमारे स्पेशल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स के बीच बॉर्डर मैनेजमेंट के संबंध में सहमति बनी। कैलाश मानसरोवर यात्रा फिर से शुरू की। दोनों देशों के बीच डायरेक्ट फ्लाइट भी फिर से शुरू की जा रही है। हमारे सहयोग से दोनों देशों के 2.8 बिलियन लोगों के हित जुड़े हुए हैं। इससे पूरी मानवता के कल्याण का मार्ग भी प्रशस्त होगा। परस्पर विश्वास, सम्मान और संवेदनशीलता के आधार पर हम अपने संबंधों को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध हैं। एफएनसी चीन द्वारा एससीओ की सफल अध्यक्षता के लिए मैं आपको बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। एक बार फिर चीन यात्रा के निमंत्रण के लिए और आज की हमारी बैठक के लिए आपका हार्दिक धन्यवाद।
President Xi Jinping in his latest statement emphasized that it was vital that the two friendly and populous countries worked together for the benefit and well-being of their citizens.
The world today is swept by once-in-a-century transformations. The international situation is both fluid and chaotic. China and India are two ancient civilizations in the East. We are the world's two most populous countries, and we are also important members of the global South. We both shoulder the historical responsibility of improving the well-being of our two peoples, promoting the solidarity and rejuvenation of developing countries, and promoting the progress of human society. It is the right choice for both sides to be friends who have good neighborly and amicable ties, partners who enable each other's success, and to have the dragon and the elephant dance together.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi also had a meeting with Cai Qi, Secretary of the Secretariat of the Chinese Communist Party. And joining us on the broadcast now is Dr. Yevgeny Priyemen from Minsk, Belarus. He is the founder and director of the Minsk Dialogue Council on International Relations. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the broadcast. So let me begin by saying that now Belarus has joined the SCO quite recently in 2024, marking a significant step in your foreign policy. How does Minsk view its role in the bloc, especially as the SCO positions itself as a counterbalance to Western influence amid the rising global tension?
previous 15 years, Minsk was an active participant of all sorts of activities within the SCO. It was an observer. It was an invited guest there. And, for example, we held military drills together with some partners in the SCO. So Minsk was still active there, even in a different category, not just as a member. Now it is a fully fledged member. Minsk stresses that it is the first and only European member of the organization, and indeed it offers its geopolitical, geostrategic position as the Eastern European nation to something it can offer to the organization, being the only European member of the organization. And I think, on the one hand, it is true that the SCO positions itself as a sort of counterbalance to Western influence, but at the same time, I think it is clear that all the members, including Belarus now, are looking for opportunities to bridge and to find ways of cooperation with the West, including through the organization, but to do that on an equal basis, to ensure that there is no dictate on the part of the West when it comes to cooperative projects, cooperation projects. And I think in this respect, Belarus and the SCO do reinforce one another and find ways of strengthening their own position.
Absolutely. And having said that, with terrorism, extremism and also separatism high on the agenda at the SCO summit, how do member nations plan to coordinate on the security concerns without compromising its own strategic interests?
Well, of course, you're right. There are discussions about counterterrorism and counter-extremism in the SCO since day one of its establishment. And those discussions are not just academic, theoretical, of course. There are structures involved there, including national security councils, all sorts of state institutions which are in charge of countering extremism and terrorism. So there is a good track record already, I would say, within the organization in that kind of work in that direction. And I think it is just being continued. The problem, of course, is that besides counter-terrorist and counter-extremist activities, now the organization and its member states have to focus on more, let's say, hard security issues like the war, for example. We are having, unfortunately, war between Russia and Ukraine next door to Belarus, and this is a fundamental issue, which, of course, in turn, has a lot of potential terrorist and extremism challenges coming out of the battlefield. So I think it is pretty clear that the organization is focusing on that, and a series of drills that are taking place. By the way, just in a few days from now, a new military exercise is going to take place in Belarus, which will involve at least some members of the SCO. And while the big focus of the exercise is hard security, extremism, terrorism, and countering those evils will also be the focus of the countries.
Right, and the world order as we know it is in quite a flux with President Trump's tariff unleashing a new kind of chaos on the world order. Now, what kind of an impact can the SCO have in bringing a stabilizing force into the mix here?
Well, of course, the SCO is an interesting organization in terms of combining primarily the focus on security risks and also economic cooperation. It's not the biggest actor in terms of economy in the world, of course. And, for example, compared to BRICS, it's a slightly different creature, let's say, in terms of international relations. But when nations which do share certain principles in international relations, and I think this is the case when it comes to the SCO, when they come together and then discuss international affairs and they come up with some ideas about how those international affairs should be built and on what principles that they should rely, I think it's always helpful. And when it comes to, let's say, unilateral American actions in the international arena, of course, when the SCO can come together and explicitly say that what the Americans are doing today is not exactly in the world's interest, I think at least it can have some impact. But of course, it will ultimately be up to its member states to, let's say, relay that message to the Americans and to other actors in the international community. But again, I think when nations come together and they share a certain platform, including based on certain principles, I think it can only help to promote the cause.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Reaffirms, for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspective with us.
Thank you.